everybody, and welcome to this episode of Just Ship It. I have Chris over here, who you might know from CSS Tricks and CodePen. Are those your only two, Chris? Or should we know you from?
Well, I have a podcast too called Shop Talk Show, so we're both podcasting veterans.
Yes, I was going to say that next. Yes, and love everything you do. And, I'm excited to talk to you just like about your story and, how you got started and things like that. And
well, I'm excited to talk to you too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So CSS Tricks is kind of when you first started, right? How long ago was that?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty old. It was about 15 years old when I sold it. So if people are still under the impression that I own and operate that, that's not true. It's been a little over a year since that was sold to DigitalOcean. Mm-hmm. Who, and some of this, that even the team went over there, and that was all good. It's still online, still looks just like I left it. There's a bunch of more content since I left, but it looks like since about April, they've just kind of turned off new content on that. So it's kind of dead in the water as it were. But I'm happy that all the people that wrote for it and all that are still, all your bylines are successfully preserved on the site right there. So it could have been worse in that way. When did it start? 2007. So, depends on what you think of the year 2007. I bet somebody listens to the show who wasn't even born yet,
Well, 2007.
I don't think of it as that long ago.
Oh, I guess that would make you
43.
like 16-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I listened to a podcast the other day of a kid that makes this product called Million.js that all the React people were excited about, who's 18. So, he was 2 when I started that thing. Kind of interesting. I literally started in my parents' basement, so that's a thing.
Really? You started?
Yeah, and a bit, it still feels like that though to me. I mean, it did all the way up until the end. It's like, it's just a blog, like I didn't invent any technology or anything. Yeah. It's a WordPress website. So anybody can do this. You could, by the time we're done talking, you could have your WordPress blog set up. And I didn't do anything that weird with it. I mean, obviously I custom designed it once in a while, but I didn't invent any technology to run CSS Tricks. I just was like, do you know how to put border radius on a div? You go like this, boop, 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 boop. And then I did that, 7,000 more times, and it became a industry thing that people know about.
Well, what motivated you to start it?
I'll try to do the really fast version of that story. It was just like, it was one of a group of blogs that I started after college with a friend who, and the idea is that we registered a bunch of domains and we were going to put a bunch of websites up. Like, let's make a blog network. I don't know why you'd start with a network. We just did because we were kids and dumb. But he did phone support for a company that Adobe outsourced to do all their support. So I don't know if you knew that, but companies like Adobe, they don't do their own support. They hire people to do that. So he would answer the phone and somebody'd be like, Adobe, Acrobat is crashing when I open it or something. And he'd be like, did you do this? And they'd be like, that worked or whatever. So he had kind of frontline info on what problems were that people were having. Yeah. Kind of interesting, little data on actual problems. What if you turn that into a blog post? That was the whole point. Maybe they'd Google it first. Maybe they'd land on our blog post.
Early documentation.
Yeah. I mean, they had their own documentation. We weren't. But I was just kind of thinking, if we get any traffic at all and we put Google AdSense on it, maybe it'll make $100. Like, wouldn't that be friggin' rad? We were so young that $100 a month would have been so awesome. Yeah. Our rent was probably $350. So like, wow, cool. What? Right. And we had jobs.
2007.
Yeah. But we're with 6 people in one crappy house in Portland, Oregon. Yes. Yeah. It was probably less.
That makes sense. Coming from the Bay Area, I'm like, I don't think my rent was ever $350. It's not in 2007.
It's just a different geographic region and time and quality level. You probably have never lived in a place as awful as I've lived. but we were just having fun. Nobody was trying to quit their job. We are just like, this is fun. And I was a computer nerd forever. I was a computer nerd since day one. So the idea of like building websites just anyway sounds fun to me.
Yeah.
And the idea that money can be extracted from them is fun too. They're all Adobe-based websites except for one that I called CSS Tricks for some reason. Just like, I'll toss this one on there too. Especially because I was the one making all the websites, having a lot of fun doing it, having a lot of fun specifically with the design part of it. And I was learning little bits about CSS, and I was like, I'm gonna blog about this stuff with just no idea about the greater CSS community at all. I didn't know who any of those people were or why I would care. I was getting to know that, but I didn't know enough to be scared. I didn't know enough to be like, ooh, I probably shouldn't weigh in on this until I see what, Dave Shea has to say or Eric Meyer or something.
But like Twitter was like what? Twitter
didn't exist.
Was
Well, I guess 2005.
I think?
Well, yeah, maybe they didn't even exist. Yeah, maybe.
It was very
if
new.
It was, I didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super new. Yeah, I wasn't worried about that. I was mostly worried about just that raw traffic, get Google Analytics on there, watch those charts, see if we can get any traffic. Turns out Adobe threatened to sue anyway, because you can't put their name in URL anyway. And by that time, we're like, I don't even care anymore. We just turned them all off.
Except for
but because they didn't care about that one, and I was having the most fun on that one. It got the least traffic, but I had the most fun. So if there's a lesson there, how about that one?
Yeah.
And then I just kept at it because again, it was kind of fun. Smashing Magazine also already existed. They're still around, doing great today. Always was friendly with them, but they were more successful right away. In the very early days of Smashing Magazine, they did lots of like list style stuff. Like here's 80 awesome web,
I remember.
examples.
Yeah,
fun, right? And they would do really well. And if you made it into one of those, like here's 50 CSS hacks or something, I would see a big traffic spike from that because they were so popular. And that they'd probably like be high up on Dig or early Reddit or something. I don't know where their traffic came from, but they did okay that way. And then that would get really exciting. When you see a traffic spike, you're like, oh my God, people are actually seeing this thing. I still have that in my head today. Like, wow, a bunch of new people are seeing the thing that I did. I'm going to clean it up. Now's the time. Now's the time. I better redesign.
Yeah.
So I'd redesign and whatever. But then I started getting my own traffic, I started regularly writing things that people are at least a little bit interested in. And that can be pretty intoxicating, like when I hit the publish button, people are going to read this thing somehow, some way. Yeah. Maybe some comments I'll pour in. The early days of CSS Tricks, you get 100 comments on a post.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen these days. Then to CSS Tricks, it's 1,000 times more traffic and 10% of the comments.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what happened there, but that's, people, they talk elsewhere. They talk in their Discords. They talk in social media, whatever, but blog commenting just ain't a thing and no more.
Yeah.
That was just a side thing. But, I wrote and wrote forever. Monetization eventually happened, obviously, put ads on it. There was ads on it the whole time. That was no surprise to anybody.
Yeah.
But then it starts making enough money that you're like, ooh, it'd be nice to have an editor, I think the earliest person I hired, Sarah, was just helped with swag. At one point we started selling t-shirts and stuff, and she's like, I'll help with that. And her home, she lived in Ohio. You just like loaded a wall full of t-shirts and we sold. And she would literally physically take them to the store to sell them, so that was weird. That, it was like the middle years kind of.
But did you when did you quit your job?
God, what year was it? I could probably look it up. But at some point I was because here's a little mini side story. I was making a lot of websites because I eventually was a professional website maker, for a small agency. And I would continue to write at CSS Tricks because I was learning more and more and more and faster and faster and faster. And I'd make a lot of websites for clients, and they'd all need like at least a contact form. Every website has, you click on the about link or the contact link, and like, how are we gonna handle that? because you can do a mail to link, but that's not very classy. You know, you got to have a form. All websites got to have a form. And I somehow learned about Wufoo, and then I was just the biggest fan ever. It was such a cool app that I'd be like, you guys got to know this. And I'd start writing articles about how to do certain things in Wufoo, which in those days, I would know now. If you write an article about how to do something on CodePen, I'm definitely going to read it. I will find it and read it. You won't even know, but I will. In those days, you definitely did. They knew me. They knew that some kid is writing about their product. Anyway, I got invited to speak at a conference. So happened that the lead designer and co-founder, Kevin, was speaking there too. And, you know, I think they had it secretly in mind that they wouldn't mind hiring me, but wanted to feel me out first. So I go meet the Wufoo guys, and they're like, why don't you come back later, come to Florida, and we'll really actually interview you. And that went great. And I ended up working for Wufoo. Great. Now I'm writing about startups and how they work. And, you know, I kept CSS Tricks going the whole time through that.
So much content writing.
Yeah, because you know, why not? I'm learning different things about tech, so it just kind of kept going.
Yeah,
I don't even know where I was going with that, but you know, the career just kept moving, and I just kept writing.
Yeah, and then
then when did I quit the job? That was your original question. Yeah, I ended up at SurveyMonkey when Wufoo got bought by them. And that was cool because it was just a different vibe and stuff, a little bigger enterprise and more people and stuff. But it was a little bit like, I miss working from home. You didn't really work from home at that time. And I was like, CSS Tricks is making enough money. You know, I've already hired one person. Maybe I could, you know, make it a full blown go. And to like reduce the risk a little bit, shortly after I quit, I was like, I should do a Kickstarter. I think that went up to like 70 grand or something, which felt like a lot of money. As those things turn out, though, that money just instantly disappears with all with not just taxes, but actually fulfilling the rewards and stuff. Yeah, it's just it was like a kind of a hard period in my life. There was some motivation there that
Were you married?
like, where people already paid you. No, I wasn't at the time, but I had quit my job and I was trying to make this thing happen and was a little stressed out over all that, but it ended up working out fine. You know, I took advertising sales more seriously.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I'll put you in a video over here. I'll put you in the display ad over here. I'll put you on Shop Talk Show because that existed by then.
Yeah.
And those were at that exact time when I quit my job, that's when CodePen started too. There's probably a few months gap.
That's
where
cool.
I was like, well, now I have the time to do whatever. And I had some guys with me, Alex and Tim, that were working at SurveyMonkey with me and Wufoo before that were like, we should do something, you know, like we should just do anything.
Was that like 2010, 12, 13?
Yeah, exactly. 10, 11, 12. I think it officially launched in 12 and the pro.
Because you're talking about all these things where I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like
10 years ago now. Yeah.
That was like 3 careers ago for me, right? Like when I was like, ooh, and I mean, I still remember like, you know, going to my first conference and, you know, it was an API conference and everyone, you know, this is like what, 2000.
You went to an API conference?
2009 so cool. Maybe, or 2000, 2008, 2010, somewhere around there, right?
Yeah.
But like my first conference was like, oh, did you hear about these things called APIs? They're so cool. You can like build these things, you know, it's so easy to build things down. You know,
heck yeah, that was the birth of like the cool web, you know. We're in a way we're still in that era, you know, like what can you build that's cool that doesn't use third-party APIs? Nothing.
But it was like such a new concept, you know, and then Web 2.0, right? Like O'Reilly's Web 2.0 Expo, I think it was called, or whatever. And
nice, definitely, we definitely lived through that.
Yeah, right. And it just feels like forever ago. But yeah, I love that. So you just like you had 3 people and you're like, let's just do something.
Yeah, pretty much. And I floated this is the origin story of CodePen then, I guess, was like, well, I have CSS Tricks, it already does pretty well. I would love to have a way to show the demos because half or more and 100% of the good articles on CSS Tricks are talking about how to do something with code and show you a demo.
Right.
And I had this really bummer simple way of showing a demo, which is like put an HTML file on a server is what it
Yeah.
boiled down to. And I'll link to it. And then like, then what? How do you, is it branded? How do you link back? How do you put analytics on it? Blah, blah, you know, like, I don't know. It's just not, my system was dumb, but I wanted to send you somewhere to look at. I didn't want to just post code and be like, I promise this works. I knew early on, I was like, you need to see it working.
Yeah.
That's what,
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I was like, let's build one of those things, and I'll build it with the intention of that I can embed the demo right in the post.
Yeah.
Which at the time, believe it or not, was not common and
Mhm.
pretty cool, you know? So it was built to be an embed first, and specifically for CSS Tricks. And it was kind of like, maybe we'll do it open source. Maybe we just make this cool thing, and people, if you want to use it on your site, you just self-host the thing.
Because those were the days when like embedding was like still new. It was like, oh, did you know you could embed something on a site? And oh, look, here's a form, or oh, look, here's a little widget. Widgets were so popular. I remember.
Yeah. Oh, embed kind of came out of that era or whatever. Yeah, pretty cool. You know, like the idea that you could put a YouTube video right in the middle of something was, you know, there was a time when you didn't do that.
Yeah. So crazy.
Yeah. So that CodePen came out of that, and then we didn't open source it. So I'm not really a huge part of the open source community, really. It's just the code just like once we decided, oh, we'll have pro plans, you know, we had ambitions to make money off of it.
Yeah.
It was a little hard to like decouple that from what the part of it that would have been open source.
Yeah. But it's like so used in it, like the product itself is so used in open source. But did you get funding?
It would be easier for people to use if they didn't have to install it.
Yeah.
Not at first. We didn't. We just rolled it at first, and then it was a couple of years later. I think we were starting to do well in selling pro plans, but we had bigger ambitions. You know, like we should build a new iteration of this thing and do more. And we wanted to hire some people, and we had some friends who were the founders of Wufoo. Back then, who had exited and done well. You know, this is just how it works. It's so incestuous, but whatever. I benefited from it. So true. And they gave us $1 million for 10% of CodePen. They still have it today, although we've gone through weird events and stuff. I think they own even more of it now. And we used that money. All we did was just hire some people. We hired like a round of people. Yeah. And we used their expertise and stuff to build out more of CodePen faster, and, you know, no regrets. And then we never took any more money after that.
Oh, wow.
So we're
still $1 million.
$1 million. And that's it. And we're hoping that works out just great for everybody in the end.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I've done funding, but, you know, when people ask me questions about that, I'm like, I don't know. We were like having a beer at a conference with those guys, and they're like, what if we gave you some money? You know, it was like kind of their idea.
Yeah. But that's like, the best, right? I mean, I remember going through the fundraising thing back in, God, when did I take funding? It feels like so long ago. Maybe it was like 2013, 15. I don't know. Maybe it was earlier. Maybe it was like 2011 or something. I don't know. But anyways, point being, when I took it, it was like, you know, I was just like, struggling. And then I met this guy, and I asked him if he could like review my pitch deck, because I wanted to like pitch to investors. And he was like, okay, just close your laptop. And like, just
that person ended up being the person that gave you the funding.
Yeah. Well, he was the founder of Match.com. And so we were just like having coffee. I was like, look at this. And then, you know, he kind of like, you know, just kind of hung out along the journey, right? And
did he not care what the idea was? He was investing in you kind of thing?
He cared in the idea, but I think most people, when they invested in my first startup, they were investing like in me, you know, and the idea. But I don't know. It's so sad because, you know, you see so many founders out there these days, like flailing and struggling. And I don't know if you just feel bad for them, but like I see some people, and, you know, you can get angry at some founders for being kind of dumb, or, you know, just like effing, you see them effing up, right? And I'm like, Look, I just feel sorry for you because I've been there. I've been in my 20s not knowing what the hell I'm doing and making mistakes. You know, that's how you need to grow.
There
But
you go.
but
I
I
like
mean,
that.
you
I
can't
don't
get
feel sorry for
angry.
people in tech. Maybe call me an asshole or whatever. But if you just if you're a decently workable person and have some tech skills, I know the
Yeah.
market isn't super great right now, but I
Yeah.
think you'll be okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it tends to be the jobs you get are like, the fridges are still full of Red Bull. There's
Yeah.
still free lunch on Thursdays. Like, it's a pretty good job. You could be a line chef at Applebee's. I did that for a while. I could
Yeah.
go back if I had to. Don't wanna. But, I don't feel I don't have any empathy for well, my startup isn't working. Well, then go get a job.
I love that. So CodePen's been a journey for like what, 10 years now?
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
over,
Yeah, a little
actually.
over 10 years.
Still doing good. We have some advertising there too. I brought that to the party probably because I did okay with that on CSS Tricks. I mean, that was the whole revenue model of CSS
Yeah.
Tricks, was pretty much that. Everything else that we tried didn't land as well as just like, whatever, I'll sell some ads to Microsoft or whatever. And
Yeah.
Team Treehouse was a big early sponsor that took us through a lot of times, and then later Front End Masters, which is still a just wonderful company,
Yeah.
was like a high value sponsor. But there was a lot of them.
Yeah.
Anybody that came and wanted to advertise, I would try to pitch them on a deck. That was my job, for a while.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I brought that to CodePen too. So to this day, I'll find a way to promote your company through CodePen, as long as you're cool. We can figure it out. And then, but that's a small slice of the pie. Mostly we have pro plans, people buy the pro plans and it pays us. And that's good because it's really stable.
Yeah.
So we can always make payroll and whatever.
Yeah.
We have a team of 7 and we're just getting it done,
Yeah.
I think we've been as many as 10. It goes up and down, but
Yeah.
we are hard at work at the next version of CodePen and hoping that kind of takes us to the next level. We're always thinking about that, so I'm very happy working on it. It's fun.
Do you feel like CodePen was like, how did CodePen become successful? Like, was it because of CSS Tricks and kind of like the traffic you had there?
Oh, we said we were going to do that, weren't we? Thanks for the reminder, Tracy. Because I'm fascinated by that. Because I did get to cheat in a way with CodePen. Cheat as far as like, I got the marketing part for free.
Yeah.
Because I had CSS Tricks and it was a pretty highly read
What
publication.
was it like? What were the views? Do you remember back then?
Back then, what the number? I mean, it was it was over 10 million like page views a month towards the end. Like a peaking at 12, kind of thing. It was like,
and like everything was just advertising. I mean, you were doing other advertising, but like everything was like integrated into with CodePen. It's like every single example, every single blog post had a CodePen.
That's the thing, right? Like, and not just on my site, we'd built it for any site.
Right.
So like the React docs had CodePen in it. The Vue docs had CodePen in it. Like Smashing Magazine uses it for demos. Web.dev uses it. MDN used it for a while. Like that's a lot. And every single one of those things had a little CodePen logo in the corner. You can click it and jump right over to CodePen and do it. That's still true to this day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. But it's not just that. It's like, there's numbers on CSS Tricks, and I could, if we announce something, I might write a blog post about what we launched or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was more, I don't know, because the social media got involved then too. Like
yes,
it was big on Twitter, and Twitter has this. That was the bigger one. I don't even know what's happening on Facebook. I care a little more now, ironically, but at the time, well, just because Twitter sucks now. I mean, whatever, that's another conversation. But there at the time, for a long time, that was where web designers and developers hung out, for a decade or whatever. But people make things on CodePen, and those things tend to be public.
Yeah.
And if you're proud of what you made, you would share it on social media, and that had a way of finding its way to virality too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. So I mean, if we learned anything, you know, if that's what you're trying to mine from this show from me, is that like a, a public facing product is pretty cool in that way. I mean, I think that's even true of like SurveyMonkey. Its growth came from, you can make a survey for free on SurveyMonkey, and then when you submit the form, you see this big giant thing that has some kind of ad for signing up for SurveyMonkey for various reasons. They even made it so you could make money doing it somehow. Like you could fill out surveys and they'd send you a gift card.
I think I remember that. That was a long time ago, though.
Because they had this product that was like, if you wanted to make a survey and you needed some, 500, 22 to 40-year-old women who live in North Carolina or something, you could just buy it from SurveyMonkey. And they had so many people sign up through just that network effecty stuff. They'll get you 500 responses. It's going to cost you some money, but.
Do you remember those days? Like, again, like it's like the 2008, 2010, whatever ish days where there were those video networks. Do you remember like Seismic, and there's like something called like 6 Seconds, or I can't remember what the name was, but you could post videos or you could have like video chats with people, like just like Twitter, or send video messages. And, there's this thing going on right now, which I haven't like actually used the platform because I think it's a scary place where there's a lot of naked people. But it's called Omegle. Have you heard of this?
No, but I've heard of that. I mean, wasn't there a classic one that like Ben Folds 5 was on or whatever? They'd hook you up just with one random person, and there was like a 50% chance it was a dick, but like a 1% chance it was Ben
I think
Folds
this
5.
Is kind of like that, because it's like a roulette thing, right? Where you're like just randomly connected with people. But I see it on.
I see it. Talk to strangers. Yeah. Oh, that sounds horrible. Why would I do that?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty, it's funny to see the things you see that are funny, but also like, there's also probably like not so funny things on there. So I'm not going to go on the platform, but I do watch like these like little Instagram reels of people doing Omegle. But it's weird how like, time comes back and, it's like 10 years later, everything is like cool again. Right. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Things come cool. This is a very 2008 looking website though. I'm sorry.
Maybe it existed before. Maybe somebody just like,
it's been reinvigorated through the technology of WebRTC or whatever.
Yeah. What would you have done differently?
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, having a blog first was I would not do differently. That was the best thing I could ever did, Come launch day, you have all these people that are hyper targeted they would love to try it out. I still have that to some degree. I mean, I don't have CSS Tricks anymore, but in some degree your audience kind of comes with you.
Right.
Although, God, we better maintain that, I don't know how you do it.
You gotta get on Omegle.
I guess, yeah.
No, really don't.
How do people build their personal brand now? Is it you have to pick the biggest one and go with it, TikTok, I guess.
Podcast. I mean, everybody loves your podcast, obviously.
Yeah. It is important to me to hang on to some semblance of a personal brand. I do think it's harder now, though, somehow.
Yeah.
What would I do differently, though? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, looking back at the trajectory of CodePen, I can think of some things like, but yeah, it's hard to, it's like hindsight is not fair because we had to try and fail to learn what we know now.
Yeah.
But for example, even today on CodePen, we have the pen editor, which is what everybody thinks of. There's just these 3 boxes and you write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And it was, that's been it's taken us this far, pretty much everybody who pays for CodePen is familiar with that as a product and the things that it can do. But then we made this other thing called projects, which was like, well, we better evolve a little bit because there's all these people that that's not enough. It needs to feel a little bit more like real development where you have a whole folder full of files and you can have nested folders and whatever. And projects was our take on that. And it, in the end, like, even though if you find it a great product, well, good for you, but not very many people do. And now we have 2 editors. We have this one over here and this one over here. And that was probably a mistake to like build 2 separate things that you have to maintain when you're a small team, like keeping it small is better. I mean, in a way, that's what we're addressing now. But
Yeah.
that's, I'd call that a little bit of a mistake. I thought that even the title of your show, Just Ship It, of this
Uh-huh.
series anyway, is funny too, because I think we had that attitude for a long time too.
Yeah.
Someone called it Twitter driven development, where we'd be like, we got a little idea, cool, let's do it this week. So
Or
when
like
you're
conference
new
driven
and you're
development.
young,
Yeah. You're
yeah,
new and you're young and you don't know better and you can break
yeah.
things because less
Well,
people use
you'll make
it.
somebody happy by doing
Yeah.
this little feature or something.
Yeah.
And you're not really thinking about like, what is that going to feel like 8 years from now?
Yeah.
That's hard because we also were, maybe we're too nice or something, not to pat ourselves on the back, but we never would just kill something.
Yeah.
Anything that we ever supported, we pretty much support now. I mean, we've kind of spun down we had like a blogging feature that we spun down, but it's not like we deleted anybody's blog posts.
Yeah.
You can still go in and delete them and edit them and view them. We'll host them forever.
Yeah.
We
see what's happening to Reddit. Reddit's whole like, well, we're killing what is it called? Not the Reddit cache. I can't remember what it's called. But
Reddit cache, yeah.
It's not Reddit cache. It's like it's like the Goodwill, like it's like you can
karma and stuff.
Yeah, like all these things that like Reddit.
See, that'd be a good example though. If they're like, oh, we don't like that anymore, we're just going to get rid of it as a feature. That sucks for all those people who built it up over time, and they have this number that's meaningful to them. Or it'd be like Medium being like, we're gonna shut down, but we're not going to keep your blog posts online. Those are going to every blog post on Medium is going to be a 404. Oh, what? That would be horrible, But for us, it was more little tinier features. Like, oh, you should be able to link this pen to this other pen, and it will suck over some of the content from that pen and display it in this pen. You're like, oh, that's a cool idea. But it turns out there's just countless hours in maintaining and making sure that works over time.
Yeah.
Was like, I don't know that we would have done it, or we would have thought about it differently as we were first putting into the product, because holy cow, the amount of hours that we've spent on that is wild. But how do you know that until you make the mistake?
Yeah.
I don't know. You gotta touch a stove before you know a stove is hot.
That is very, very true.
Gonna learn.
But you wouldn't have done it if you knew any better, right? I mean, I think that's the same thing with blogging, right? Like if you knew all these CSS people and you were intimidated by them or whatever. That's why I love like during, for me, when I started development, right? Like you just don't know. So I'm like just blogging about like, I'm so excited about this new router. Oh my gosh, it's so cool. Look how it works. Sure. And like now I look back, I'm like, oh my God, was that lame? But you know what? I was excited. And actually other people were really excited too, because they also needed to know about the new router, or like Angular material, for example, it was in like alpha. Even the Angular material team was like, oh my gosh, please don't ever use that in production. What are you doing? But like, I desperately needed to know how to figure out how to do it. So I like wrote blog posts just to help myself. And, again, it's like, did I care or was I just writing to write? And, those are some of like my most popular things. So, I mean, I love that. I love that you just found neat. Something you were excited about and just like,
there's some great nuance to all that I like, right? If you write a post and says, look at this is cool. I think this is cool.
Yeah.
You almost can't it's like a little intoxicating. You're like, oh, Tracy likes that. That's awesome. And you can't really argue against it. She's just saying she likes it, but that's not all you did. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But you the next post you write, it could have been like, well, here's how you make a set of tabs component with this new router.
Yeah.
Then you can be wrong,
Yeah.
Then you can make an accessibility mistake, which I've made lots of.
Yeah.
Then you can be like, well, but what about this case that's a very common that you forgot? It's tricky and in tech. I don't know. It's kind of a hard part about blogging that.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of not knowing, because once you have more years on you and know all the mistakes you could make, then all of a sudden you like don't want to produce the content, because then you're thinking about all these different edge cases and like, oh, what am I gonna, and I feel like people just get stuck in this like,
which
I'm stuck in the loop.
That's when you're most prepared to do it. Like then you should be doing it.
But then it's like, I don't want to do it because X, Y, Z.
Because people exist and they're horrible.
And like people think of me this way. So if I am wrong, and it's so great to just like not be naive, you know, or like have that like not care in you. Cause I think that's like when you create the best things.
It really is. You
Yeah.
create better music, you know. I feel like, you know, that's why I don't know. It's rare to me to have a musician at the end of their 30-year career or whatever it is in music be making their best music. It's like
Yeah.
never, you know. It's like always
Yeah.
when they're young and just doing whatever and
Doing whatever.
feeling what they're feeling and letting it out, you
I
know.
know. I wish I had a more turbulent life because I feel like that is like when you can write, you know, I've always wanted to be an artist or, you know, some like, you know, a musician or something, right? But it's like, when do you get to write like the most traumatizing, dramatic, you know, you kind of have to have that in your life to do it, you know? Um,
You
my life is
really
not
do.
like,
It's kind of a bummer, you know, because I feel
yeah,
like rock and roll artists take that a little too literally. You know, they're like, I
yeah,
got to do some hair. If I'm gonna do a good album, I need to hit rock bottom. And you're like, ooh,
yeah,
I hope not. You know,
yeah,
just turbulence is maybe enough to.
yeah, yeah. But you know, I like a stable life too. Stable lives are good.
Yeah, yeah. I don't need anything anymore.
This program is presented by This.Labs, a framework agnostic consulting firm helping enterprises realize their technical goals through staff augmentation, consulting, project management, on-demand subject experts, training, and other professional services. Find out more at this.labs.com.
Yeah. Okay. So where do we find you on the internet? How do we get a hold of you?
Oh, well, I'm the easiest in the world. I have the good fortune of being a privileged white male dude who can just use my name everywhere. I have no pseudonym. I'm Chris Coyier. My website is chriscoyier.net. I'm Chris Coyier on, you know, front end social, the Mastodon instance, and
Yeah.
X and Threads and Blue Sky and all the things like that. But you know, I think my website is the best possible place because I take that seriously. I have a URL that represents me on the web, and it links to
Yeah.
all the stuff that I do, and it links to my writing, and it links to my history, and it has dark mode and everything.
Well, cool. Thank you so much for coming on the show and hanging out for a second.
It's my great pleasure to be on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Tracy.
Yeah. Make sure to find Chris on the internet and give him a like, give him a follow, tell him how amazing he is.
Yeah, please do. I don't like that.
Okay. We'll see you all next time. Thanks.